suppose we mobilize one THAAD battery to South Korea, aside from all the political arguments and potential all the reactions and opposition the Chinese and Russians and North Korea have raised, let's put them aside. Let's think about the actual efficacy of what this battery can do. It has like 46 projectiles or interceptors. Now, North Koreans have the hundreds and hundreds of Scots or thousands of Scots missiles, and recently they have just only back in February 12, they tested it successfully, for that matter, a new type of solid field intermediate ballistic missile from a launcher, a removable launcher, that makes it more difficult to detect and destroy from Allies' point of view. And also they have successfully tested a launch of a submarine launched a ballistic missile last year. And that's, again, something is going to make it very difficult for that capability to deal with. And I understand there's a need to focus on the continuing development of technology to improve the efficacy of the missile defense system. But it all comes, I think the missile defense is a part of the strategy to deter the launching of missiles to protect the United States homeland to begin with, and then allies and elsewhere. So there is a need to continue on this, but I think as far as that deploying with that battery to South Korea is still controversial. In an earlier session we discussed whether Moon Jae-in is skeptical about it. He first opposed, and now he's changing his position on this. I think General Chan should have more to say on this thing, because he's not only worked in with the armed forces, but also he was a security advisor to Moon Jae-in. I think he's still doing that in a private capacity. And but Korea is developing different types of missile defense system that is called the KMD, Korean Missile Defense System. Number one, I think to stray away from the pressure that South Korean people might not go along with the idea that South Korea should buy and get THAAD systems from the United States, which would benefit the defense industry in this country, which is part of the American economy as well. That's okay. But the idea is South Korea has to upgrade its own low altitude defense system with the Patriot up to Patriot 3, and then reinforce that with the KMD system. And their objective is to develop the capability with which they can detect and destroy or disrupt and destroy if they, and to use that capability as part of a key chain strategy, as they call it. And that's a part of the idea of a not preventive but preemptive strike against North Korea. So there is very risky talks there. That does not really make it easier for diplomats or the State Department or anyone else who would like to pursue another channel or venue of different types of resolution through dialogue and engagement. So my question is, so when you talked about the budgets involved in this and political atmosphere here in Trump's policy, and Trump recently talking about apparently his doctrine, if you will, is to secure peace through strength with emphasis on America first. But what is the broader idea of his policies? Nobody knows. I mean, Mike O'Hara says he has no idea what Trump's policy will be about Asia. I don't think anyone else has that either. I don't think Trump has it. I don't think his national security team, members of his national security team have it yet, because it's still evolving. It's been only 1 month since they got into administration, and they have to develop a lot of stuff. And I think the broader, and he said he's going to, Trump just recently said he's going to increase U.S. nuclear capability. Does it really assure more stability or more security for the United States? Because as he said himself in his relations or his perspective of U.S. relations with Russia, Russia is a very strong nuclear power itself. So will they trigger arms race again? Is it, we talked about continuity, but I think it's not only change, but it's not the disruption of the continuity if you think the trend has been, or mainstream policy has been to reduce nuclear arsenals involving all different countries. So let me just give you a quick question. So when and how we can stabilize potential instability of missile confrontation, and that could trigger a war. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much, Hong, and Tom, thank you for your remarks. I just finished writing a piece on the North Korean threat, and I think, Tom, you're right, but I think some of the comments we've heard are missing the mark. I'm glad to see Tom is now impressed with North Korean missile capabilities, because it wasn't too many months ago as I said somewhat the same thing, that you criticized me for being too praiseworthy of North Korea's capability. We're not asking a question, what does North Korea want to do with this capability? And you either deter it and you deny them the use of the capability, or you defend against it. Those are the three options you have. And you can do that diplomatically, politically, economically, or militarily. You have to decide what you think North Korea's aims are. If every time the North Koreans criticize the joint exercises with South Korea, what do they claim? They ask the United States military forces to be removed from the peninsula. It's in everything they say. That's the bottom line. It's the last thing they talk about, often not reported. The media look at this and they say, well, North Korea's not stupid. They're not going to launch a rocket that hits somewhere in the East River in Manhattan, because we'll know where it comes from. Remember, former Senator, at the time, Senator Joe Biden, I sponsored a missile defense conference where he spoke with Senator Levin and Senator Kyle, and he stood not more than 2 feet in front of me as the host and said, missile defense is the craziest thing in the world. We don't need it. We'll just, if they launch a missile at us, we'll hit them back. When you think of it, is that the only option, as Paul Nitze said? Do you want to just incinerate thousands, if not tens of thousands of people in another country that are innocent? Because if you're going to retaliate, you're going to retaliate with a bomber that takes 16 hours to get there, because in the meantime, they're going to be launching a few more rockets at you. Are you going to be, Senator Biden at the time said, we nuke them. Or if you nuke North Korea, you're also going to kill not only a lot of innocent people in North Korea, the plumes of the nuclear weapon are going to go south, because that's the prevailing wind, and you're going to irradiate a lot of South Koreans. So we haven't asked ourselves the question, what is the North Korean, what's their goal of having greater and greater missiles capability and nuclear weapons? They want us off the peninsula. I put it this way, if you read Tom Reed's book, The Nuclear Express, China's role in the development of nuclear weapons in North Korea is quite extensive because of their support and creation of the Con network. That's where the North Koreans got a lot of their capability. They in turn helped the Pakistanis with ballistic missiles. And if you look at the history that is detailed in Tom Reed's book, and Tom Reed's not just an academic, he's former Secretary of the Air Force, former Deputy National Security Advisor to the President of the United States, Ronald Reagan. And if you look at that, then you begin to think, what is North Korea up to? The Chinese want American forces off the peninsula as well. Because look at the South China Sea. If you take the island chains that South Korea, the Chinese are militarizing, what's the difference between that chain and the co-prosperity sphere of the Imperial Japan? They're identical. I mean, the geography is the same. They want to keep us out, meaning as far east as possible, so they can run the show. The question is, you ask yourself with the Chinese, why do they want to run the show? Michael Hanlon said, well, they want to mine nodules on the seabed and get oil and gas. Well, hell, ask American companies, do the joint venture, get some money from the World Bank and do it. That's not what they want. They want to keep us out so they can stay in part because they want to use their military power to push other people around and control the $7 trillion of trade that goes through that area. That's what the Chinese are up to. They're also worried that the Indians and other enemies of them might cut off some of the seafaring commerce that they get, particularly oil and gas. And so when you ask yourself, Tom says that a THAAD battery of X number of interceptors is not going to be able to match thousands of artillery tubes or missiles from North Korea. I'm always amazed that missile defense always seems, from its critics, to have to solve every problem that a military threat poses. No, it doesn't. It's one element of a whole series of things that you either deter, defend, or deny. Deny is, Michael Hanlon said that the President of the United States previously did not say, or preemptively go after the North Korean sites, but as Secretary of Defense in 3 Democratic administrations, Harold Brown, Bill Perry, and Mr. Carter, all said we should preempt the North Korean launch sites. Now, yeah, they weren't president, but they were working for presidents. And they carried a great deal of weight. And I understand why they said to do it. Bill Perry said, I don't want anybody to know that North Korea could actually launch a ballistic missile successfully. I want to take that out of their hands so that nobody knows. I understand that thinking. But the idea that when Mr. Trump said they will not do that, what was he referring to? He was referring to dropping a nuclear warhead on America. He was saying we're going to shoot it down with missile defense. Look at the missile defense proposal that they sent over to Mr. Mattis, called the Missile Defense Review. It talks about a layered global, with our alliances, with our neighbors, with our friends, building missile defense capable of shooting down the threats. Congress and some of them have said we're no longer in the business of only dealing with limited threats, with limited deployments. You're letting what if your adversary doesn't give you a limited threat? You just not deal with it. And so Congress has gotten rid of that part of the 1990 Missile Defense Act, which is great. And now we can actually defend against the threats we decide to defend against. And that requires not just missile defense, and not only airplanes and strategic bombers and sensors and satellites, the rest of it. The entire panoply of what we bring to the table, and what the South Koreans and Japanese bring to the table, and our other allies that could probably help us to either, as I said, you either deter the North Koreans from doing something crazy, you defend against it, or you deny them the capability to do it. And finally, it always is an assumption that North Korea will do something we can determine that it was them. What is terrorism? What is a lot of the activities that are the cyber attacks we get from China? As someone said, China steals $300 billion of industrial secrets from America through cyber theft every year. That's from American industry, according to Keith Alexander, the former head of NSA. Now, can I actually prove that they do? If you ask the cyber people, yeah, they can say, but I can't reveal all this. But there's a lot of attacks that we can get that we won't know where they're from. If a submarine off the coast of North Carolina, 400 miles out, launches an EMP, which is a missile that goes 70 kilometers above the Earth's surface, explodes, and takes down the grid of the entire United States, eastern United States, how are you going to know who it is? You might not know who it is. Now, can we take data from the, do nuclear forensics? When it's exploded 70 miles up in the air, there's no forensics, okay? Also, it doesn't have to be re-entry, so you don't have to worry about shielding the warhead to go through the atmosphere, as everybody talks about, well, the North Koreans haven't shielded a weapon correctly so that it can actually re-enter the atmosphere and detonate in an airburst over Manhattan.
Peter.
Yes, sir. That's fine.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, just, is it on? Just a couple of questions on the missile defense. You know, ultimately it all depends on whether the bad guy thinks it's going to work, right? So maybe we don't, I'm always been skeptical, I'll tell you the truth, that missile defense works, it just seems so magical. But if the other guy thinks it's going to work, or it might work, or 10%, whatever, you know, it's a good thing to have. Seems like it's such an incredibly different issue across the DNZ, 30, 50, 100, 200 miles, and 5, 10,000 miles. It just seems like a total, in other words, missile defense for Korea seems like an incredibly different issue than missile defense for San Francisco, from North Korea. I guess I'm wanting to know from you whether obviously nothing is perfect, but do you think that the THAAD or equipment coming online is actually going to be able to convince North Korea that it's going to work enough so that they don't have to try? I'm not, you know, I'm also on the longer range, the intermediate longer range, the SM-3, for example. I'm surprised. There wasn't very noticed about a week before Kim Jong-un fired his missile, his solid fuel missile. Raytheon said they had a successful test of the SM-3, C, D, whatever. And with the Japanese, this is exclusive, with the Japanese, they shot down a target intermediate missile, like a Musanon, right? That didn't even get hardly the press, which surprised me. But